Hello there, folks. It has been a damn long time since I have done a Friday Reads and thought it would be fun to tell you guys about some of the books that I'm going to be finishing and starting this week. So first I want to tell you about Ice by Anna Kavan. So this is a book that I stumbled upon as I was sort of digging around in the depths of the library catalog and read the synopsis for this and thought it sounded really cool. And then yesterday I was watching one of Jean's videos and she held this up as one of her fall recommendations. And I got so excited because I was like, oh, I'm reading that too. So this book takes place in a dystopia in an unnamed and unidentified time. But it follows two men who are in search of this woman who they call the Glass Girl. And she's very elusive and sort of keeps slipping through their fingers. One of the men, who is our primary narrator, guides us through this world, and it sort of oscillates between what we know is reality and what is this ice world. And the ice world is just that. It's covered in ice, it's covered in snow, it's barren, it's lifeless, and it's bleak. And he encounters the Glass Girl there sometimes. But every time he does, she's sort of being violently consumed by the elements. He finds her there, but also is in pursuit of her in the real world, to somehow save her from this alternate fate that he can see in this other reality. And there's a second male character that we know as the Warden, and he is also in pursuit of the Glass Girl, but he seems to have this different sort of relationship with her, and he seems to have tabs on her all the time. And her slipping away from him is purposeful and intentional. And it seems like a ploy somehow to get our primary narrator also in his grip. So a lot of very strange dynamics and a lot of strange relationship here. Also, what is kind of fascinating outside of the premise itself is Anna Kavan's life. She was originally started writing books under the name Helen Ferguson. Helen is her birth name, and Ferguson being her married name. And sometime in the 20s, she had a nervous breakdown. And post-nervous breakdown, she developed a heroin addiction that she carried with her through the end of her life. And this was the last book that she wrote and had published before her death in 1968. And there's documentation of her having several mental illness related hospitalizations. And I don't know, her whole life story is just very captivating. But Penguin also describes this as a novel unlike any other. Ice is at once a dystopian adventure shattering the conventions of science fiction, a prescient warning of climate change and totalitarianism, a feminist exploration of violence and trauma, a speculative literary dreamscape, and a brilliant allegory for its author's struggles with addiction, all crystallized in prose glittering as the piling snow. I agree with half of that. I don't find this book to be science fiction. I think that is a misrepresentation of what this book is, partly because, one, there's no science in it, and two, there are no rules that dictate how these worlds meet or how the transition between these two worlds. So I would say I would classify it maybe as like a wandering dystopia, but definitely not science fiction. And also it being classified as a feminist exploration of violence and trauma, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that either. I think that a lot of times we're so quick to classify female writers writing about being female as being feminist books or feminist texts. And I think that the term feminism and feminist has just cast such a wide net that things that fall into it or get caught into it sometimes don't necessarily belong there. The afterword is done by Kate Zambrino, who wrote Green Girl and O Fallen Angel. And I'm kind of interested to hear her thoughts on that as well, because she, I find, has some pretty decent perspective about feminist texts or feminist literature. So I'm interested in kind of reading her afterward just to make sure that I'm not missing something, or if I overlooked something while I was reading this, that I can ruminate on it a little more. But I'm about 20 pages from the finish, so I'll let you guys know more about that once I get there. All that aside, I am very, very interested in this woman's writing. I really like her writing style and want to get my hands on a copy of her earlier work called Let Me Alone, that her name is derived from. So after her breakdown, she changed her name to the main character in the book Let Me Alone. So yeah, if you guys are interested in those sorts of disjointed, dystopian, but also just very experimental, sort of bizarrely written books, this might be one to check out. If you guys saw Matthew Sciarappa's Brolit video, he is going to be getting his feet wet with some Brolit titles, and went to Adam at Memento Mori to get some suggestions. And one of the suggestions that Adam had for him was Portnoy's Complaint by Philip Roth. Now, I'm very ashamed to admit that this will be my first Philip Roth, that at the ripe age of I'm finding him for the first time, but the important thing is that I found him and I'm reading him. So I'm about 30 pages, maybe 40 pages into this book right now, and I have to tell you, when I read the back of it, I cracked up. It's so funny. There's so much good humor in this book. And I mean, whatever your interpretation of good humor is, but it's very funny, and I'm really looking forward to this book, and probably to pick up a few other Philip Roth titles. So I thought I would join in on the fun. So along with that, one of the other suggestions that Matthew got from Adam was to read Children of God by Cormac McCarthy. I don't have that book, but there is another McCarthy I've been wanting to read, and that is Outer Dark. And this book takes place in Appalachia. It didn't really specify a time, but somewhere near, it says the end of the last century. And a brother and sister have bore a child together. And the brother takes the child, the boy, out to the woods and leaves him there, and tells the sister that the child died. She finds out the lie and sets out on her own to try to find her son. And while they both are out in their separate ways, there are three strangers that seem to be following them and terrorizing them somehow. But it says that it's headlong toward an eerie apocalyptic resolution. So I thought the premise of this was also extremely compelling, and I'm really excited to read it. I don't think that it'll take too long to read, because I think in classic McCarthy style, it's just sort of a untraditional format, more traditional than The Road, but still should be hopefully pretty quick to get through. So I'll let you guys know more about that as I get into it as well. So that's all I've got for this weekend, but let me know if you have any thoughts about these books, or any other suggestions of things similar, or things that you are reading. So leave some comments and we'll talk. And I hope you guys have a really wonderful weekend. I will see you soon. Bye.